Welcome to the Crypto Conversion Podcast. As usual, it's your hosts, Brandon, Matt, and Connor. And I am in a different location than usual. So if I'm running a little slower than what I usually am, just holler at me and I'll drop off. But we should have no issues. And we have a very special guest today. Brett Stebbins is coming on the podcast to talk to us about NFTs, the trends and tips around the NFT world, and just help educate us more on that. Because I don't know about you guys, I know a little bit, but I'm not an NFT expert by any stretch. I literally bought my first NFT this year, so
Wow.
I know I'm late. I'm very
Awesome.
late to the game, but
I I've gotten to gaming NFTs, but never art NFTs. So I'm definitely, excited for the discussion there. So
I've only been given like free NFTs, so
Do you want me
that's,
to send you one?
you only do free mints.
yeah, no,
Never used OpenSea. Yeah.
yep, no. I've helped people get on OpenSea, but
Yeah.
I've never participated in the OpenSea economy. So,
It's
but
fun.
yeah,
All right.
let's get into some of the news. Has anybody seen anything that they wanna first talk about? I know we were talking about some things before we hopped on recording here, but I'll let you all kind of get started.
I think that's the big story, and like there's a lot of like little stories within it, but the SEC is going after the exchanges, specifically Binance, and then more specifically, super specifically, Binance US, which is the US branch of Binance, and then Coinbase. The very next day, they've filed a lawsuit, and so yeah, interesting to see. Interesting move by them. I'm definitely excited to see this play out in the courts. It'll be fun to. I don't know. Do they stream court cases? Can I, is someone going to sneak in with a camera and stream it on YouTube or Twitch? I don't know. I hope we'll get some scenes from that.
I
To
I feel
to
like
be
Matt's bringing way different energy from what I've been seeing on Twitter. Everybody's so mad about this, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just I'm gonna cook up some popcorn and
Yeah. I'm gonna take a few weeks off and just
Matt, are you
enjoy these lawsuits.
as somebody who builds projects on BNB though? How do you see this?
Yeah, we gosh, this is actually really funny because we were just in the process of transitioning our liquidity from being paired with a stablecoin BUSD to BNB, so that we could capture some of that volatility.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as soon as this thing was announced, we started going down, or BNB started going down. So it's kind of funny to see. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's we don't have like a connection with Binance or the actual BNB chain themselves. So like if we have to move to a different chain, an L2 or an L3 or something, I if that's just going to come down to, we're fine with the migration. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't really seen anybody. And again, Binance is an international exchange. They're an international company, and I think the U.S. Binance US only represents something like 2 or 3% of their total
It's
volume.
not a
And
lot.
so,
Yeah.
so yeah, so even if Binance US like shuts down or something, I think themselves are going to continue, operating and doing what they're doing anyway, just not in the US. So I don't know.
Matt, are you gonna have to move to Dubai or something?
Yeah, we'll see. That is interesting. I wonder if, I mean, the lawsuit really seems to be with the exchange, but I wonder if
Mm-hmm.
they'll say something about the smart chain, to
The
see.
smart chain itself, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the biggest Catholic parish in the world is in Dubai, actually. Fun
Is it
fact.
really?
So yeah, so you'll have a home
Yeah,
when
maybe
you are
I'll
there.
move to Dubai.
You
Yeah.
you won't be alone.
There's
Um,
something about like no taxes in Dubai. That's why everyone moves there.
yeah, it's a
No
tax
income
haven,
tax, something like
but
that. Yeah.
it's getting a little bit too Instagrammy from what I understand. Some of the
I
people
mean,
that are going there, it's kind of a little fake.
Yeah.
So yeah, but who knows? Who knows? I mean, if you're rolling in it, like it's not the worst idea from what I've heard.
I think I think it's interesting is we kind of brought this up on the podcast. I want to say early on, so a couple months back now, but we were kind of curious. It was when they were going after the BUSD stablecoin, and we were curious if they were going to bring most of their regulatory energy against these foreign exchanges, and if Coinbase was going to get a pass, especially being funded by BlackRock and some of these U.S. organizations. But I think what's been most interesting to me is just seeing that no, it's definitely they're going after, crypto as a whole, or at least the centralized exchanges.
And they're going after U.S. exchanges, right? Because again, they're not, it's not Binance as a whole, it's Binance U.S., right? And then they're going after Coinbase because they're a U.S.,
Yeah.
I don't know if the SEC has ever gone after other exchanges. No, I take it back.
Robinhood.
I was using Robinhood, and then I was actually using
Kraken. I think they
Coinex. Coinex is a kind of a smaller one out there, and they recently had to delist a bunch of things for U.S. Customers. So I take that back. I guess they have a history of exchanges. So, Brandon, I mean, you mentioned my perspective was different than what people are saying on Twitter. I mean, what are some of the reactions to this? What are the predictions, the reactions? What's going to go down?
No, that was Connor that said that.
Connor, did you say that?
What?
No, you said that. You said that me sitting back eating popcorn is opposite.
Oh, no, I said that.
You said that. Oh, okay.
Connor
Sorry.
said that. No, you said that.
Sorry, kind of looked confused when I said that.
I was confused for a second.
I didn't say it.
Yeah. Brad, what have you heard about this? Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, definitely on Twitter, I keep, seeing people making comments and posting things concerning all this stuff that the SEC is doing. But yeah, they don't seem happy about it, which I wouldn't be either.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely upsetting the apple cart. And it's interesting because Europe seems to be coming with some more positive regulation through MiCA. I know we've talked a little bit about it in previous episodes. It's not necessarily what it seems to be cut out to be 100% of the time, but it's still, more positive than what the SEC is trying to do here stateside. What I found most interesting, though, and this is really telling because Robinhood has always been in the scope of the SEC because of the controversial way they just do investing in general. And they just came out with an announcement that they're going to be pulling the plug on Polygon, Cardano, and it looks like Solana as well, in light of some of these regulations, because on the Binance and Coinbase lawsuit, those three are listed as potential securities. Kind of tough to see Polygon get hit on the chin like that, to be honest. But it'll be interesting to see all of the projects and respective exchanges get their legal fisticuffs up and go to war with regulation, because the United States is still the biggest crypto country in the world in terms of an investment standpoint. So from what I understand, at least. So it's still needed from the crypto economy standpoint. If the crypto loses the United States, it could go down for a bit, and then as the rest of the world picks it back up, it would start rolling again. But yeah, as of now, it's still very much the engine is held together by investors from the U.S. initially. So. We're seeing more. We're seeing more coming from the outside, Matt. I saw your look there, but
no, sorry. I was gonna mention something else because you said that Robinhood. I think I saw another exchange is pulling a few of those off the market as well.
Probably.
But the I think one of the interesting things in the lawsuit is that they named like a dozen or so cryptos, and And some people have hypothesized that they went on like Coinbase and saw like clicked on trading pairs and just like picked the first like 10 or something like that. But one thing that's interesting, and somebody noted this earlier, I mean, they have not mentioned Bitcoin. So I think the general consensus is that Bitcoin's not a security. But they also didn't mention Ethereum or Ether as well. And so I don't know. People were trying to speculate on what,
I
are
can,
they
I
going to
can,
try to say it's
I
not
can,
a
I can
security?
tell you who else is on the watchdog list right now. So it looks like Filecoin, Sandbox, Axis, Chills, Flow, Internet Computer, Near Protocol, Voyager. Well, that was expected. And then Dash, and then Nexo, surprisingly. But I mean, they're an exchange, so I guess not too surprisingly for that matter. But yeah, that was those were the other ones included with Solana and Cardano and Polygon. So tough sledding. Especially, I'm a big, I like Internet Computers, so that's not too thrilled about that. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
I was in a Twitter space this week, and what was interesting is I heard somebody say that they run a political like polling organization. I don't know what you call that. Specifically looking at like blockchain and crypto issues. But I guess from their polling, Bitcoin gets like a plus 10 like rating polls. So what they do is they add total up all the negatives, total up all the positives, and it's like a plus 10 like positive outlook from voters looking at Bitcoin. Crypto gets a negative rating, like -5 or something.
Like the term crypto?
Yeah.
Or, okay, interesting.
And then I want to say blockchain gets a neutral rating, and then digital assets gets a positive rating, which of course digital assets is just crypto, but it's a different word, right? So people are more friendly towards the idea of digital assets,
Interesting.
but they don't like the idea of crypto. So I was thinking maybe we should change the name of our podcast.
Oh gosh, the digital asset conversion.
Digital assets conversion podcast.
Stupid. No.
I love it.
Yeah, but it is interesting just how words alone. But yeah, crypto
people
has a negative
actually
rating.
understood the definition of cryptography. They would feel more secure about that than what It's funny that they're skeptical about it because crypto means secure to me, or like encryption. That's what I think of. But I guess I did my learning in the space before I just decided to make word associations and take you all over the place. So, Connor, what have you seen?
I mean, I feel like SEC has been the big thing in the news this week, so
Okay,
nothing new from my end.
fair enough. All right, enough about protocols. Brett, tell us something that's been happening in NFT land.
Yeah, so as you know, and I especially see this all over Twitter, there's been all these meme coins that have shown up. And so there's within the NFT space, there's a bunch of people that are into it, as well as, sort of other connected spaces besides NFT. But within there's been a lot of talk about it and a lot of people that support it, but then there's a lot of people that are against it as well. They see it, as sort of almost like a scam. But so as a result, with all the meme coins and everything, it's kind of thrown the gas fees up on Ethereum. And so a bunch of artists were kind of at a standstill, not wanting to mint, and collectors not wanting to collect because of that. And so they started kind of moving over to Tezos, at least temporarily, just like, hey, let's do some stuff over there. And it's a really neat community on the blockchain there because they do a lot of cool events, hashtags. Like recently they just did what's called 200 Tezos, where basically you mint up to 200 Tezos. So it could be one edition of something at 200 Tezos, or it could be two editions at 100 each. It could be 50 editions at 4 Tezos each, so it sort of was this thing that lasted for, half a week, and people were putting up there, and so a bunch of people were buying stuff. But a lot of artists kind of moved over to that because the gas fees are like cents. You can mint a lot of things, you can do a lot of things, you can buy a lot of art, and a lot of times artists are selling things cheaper. So there's a lot of artists that I know within my circle who've never been on Tezos, specifically over onto object.com, which is the biggest site where people mint their work in the Tezo blockchain. So that's been kind of fun and interesting. I kind of started out a little bit in Tezos early on and got a chance to it kind of went through a slump, and then it's kind of having a resurgence as far as NFTs go. So it's a lot of fun.
Is that kind of something that happens when gas fees goes up? Everybody tries to find shelter on a chain that's a little more feasible on the finances.
Yeah, I would say that this time that it was more significant than I've seen before.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's people that kind of started out in Tezos, and then other people that kind of started out in Ethereum. And I think a lot of artists, starving artists, don't have they don't want to spend $50 on a transaction, and so so Tezos was really kind of inviting as far as that goes.
I've always kind of wondered, like Ethereum obviously has like the huge collections. That's where a lot of money is. But so Tezos is an interesting one for people to go to. Like they didn't go to like, a layer up like Arbitrum or like a, popular sidechain like Polygon or Solana. I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting. I don't know if you have you experimented with different ones, or are you?
Yeah, Solana is the other one.
Okay.
I have some work up on Solana, specifically exchangeart.com.
Okay.
And so that is pretty popular too. I don't think as popular as Tezos, but there's definitely a group around each of these things. So Solana, there's definitely a group of artists, and it has a certain feel and a certain feel to the art even, compared to Tezos. I would say Tezos has more of a community than Solana does.
That's interesting.
Definitely.
Okay.
I've heard. So the guy who came to the Catholic Crypto Conference, who is the NFT guy, his project, I think it's like Friendly Foxes or something like that. They were all up on Solana, and he said that he liked Solana because the gas fees, but I had never heard of his project before, so shows what I know. But he had a tie with all of his Fox NFTs on them.
Okay.
It was pretty cool. But yeah, what about Wax? Have you used Wax at all?
I have not. I know I've seen some Wax NFTs or people into that, and in some other blockchains, but I don't know if it's just because of the people that I follow.
Sure.
Following a certain group, and then you start seeing more of that, and so you follow more of that. I haven't seen much in the way of other things other than Ethereum, Tezos, and Solana as far as. But maybe it could be just who I'm following.
For sure. No, I think it's kind of interesting because I look at maybe Tezos in the same vein as Wax, and Wax has even been built more specifically for NFT projects. So it'll be interesting to see as gas fees increase, how other projects pop up and disperse themselves. Especially, I definitely see there being a need for a layer one, more alternative layer one options for NFTs, kind of off the Ethereum path, so to speak. But Matt, I think you could speak a little bit more into that with what you do in terms of how things get built on what chains and why.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the different blockchains. I say on EVM chains because I know a tiny bit of Solidity, but already Solana is different. I don't know if Tezos enough to know whether or not they're, you could use the same, if they're EVM or not.
Okay.
But no, I don't know enough about all the blockchains.
Brett, tell us how you got into minting
Yeah,
NFTs. How did that start? Because it's definitely not your run of the mill learning curve. And
right.
yeah, Connor's kind of told us about you a little bit. So just kind of tell us your story, and we'll kind of give you the floor here.
Yeah, so I was been on Twitter, I think since 2009, off and on. And so one day I'm just scrolling through my feed and I had started at this point kind of hearing things about the blockchain. I had no idea really much about crypto other than maybe I heard about Bitcoin once. And so some artist was on there that I was following, and they were talking about their NFT and about their artwork and minting it on the blockchain. I'm like, what's this? And so I click on their link and I end up on, I don't remember which platform. I end up on there and I'm seeing this and then all of a sudden I'm trying to figure out what is this, what is an NFT? And so I'm starting to do research and figuring out, okay, so this is a digital asset that's minted on the blockchain. It's going to, that way it has its own sort of identity, and which makes it have the ability of being bought and sold and have scarcity and all of that. So it took a long time to kind of get some of the concepts, but once I discovered it through that one artist, it's sort of like it just kind of kept going from there. I ended up on Known Origin and minted a bunch of stuff there. But I was struggling to make sales, and I ended up connecting with, like a year and a half later, with NFT Freaks, which is he's a kind of a big influencer in the space, and and he gave me some good advice. I ended up burning my entire collection on Known Origin. He basically said, you over minted. You've minted a whole bunch of stuff, and since you didn't kind of wait for the couple of them to sell, then people are looking at all this minted, NFTs with no sales, and they're not going to buy. So I was like, okay. So I burned it all and started over. And so I'm on Foundation right now as far as Ethereum goes. And so sold some pieces there and have a couple pieces up there now, and sort of just kind of taking my time with it and trying to build up value. So
Nice. No, I've heard a lot of good things about Foundation from Kevin Rose and his team over there. So that's interesting to hear somebody that's having some success on there, and that's a really good story about. And I'm sure, it's kind of funny because I'm sure we could look at like artists and painters who've probably burned their whole collections literally because it wasn't good enough to their standards. That
right.
as a in the history of art. So yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah, so it's been a huge learning curve, learning about value and how to create value, and so it's it's been a challenge for sure, but connecting up with people in the community and having some people around you that you can interact with and get information from and advice from is always helpful.
I think what's really interesting to me about like blockchain and like all these technologies in general is it's constantly like asking the question, like, what is value? Like with money, that's kind of what the Bitcoin discussion is all about. Like, is fiat actually valuable? Like, what actually imbues something with value? And so when it comes to like art and other things that are being built on blockchain, that's like ultimately the question it always seems to come back to. And I mean, you can like phrase it with different things, like is it utility, but it really is a question of value. Like what is it that gives this thing like meaning? What is it that makes people want to, be a part of that community, invest, like all these kind of questions. It all centers on value. And like I feel like it's not fully answered, but I think NFTs in general, like because there's so much hate against them from just everywhere. I feel like outside of blockchain, inside of blockchain, there's this constant like hate kind of spewed towards NFTs. I mean, there's both sides. There's people who absolutely love them, and there's people who are passionately against them. But I mean, it's kind of like a discussion that needs to happen because it's not really about NFTs so much. I feel like it's more like a question of like art and what what does that actually mean as an artist? Like, what does it mean to create value? And I don't know. I mean, I kind of have my own opinions on that, but it's just interesting that this discussion is opened up because of NFTs and because of blockchain in a way.
Well, there's definitely different motivations for people as far as buying art or NFTs, because there's definitely people who buy NFTs as an investment, so they see it as to make money.
Yeah.
And then there's those who really strictly just do it for the art sake of it. There's a particular guy on, he's actually over in Southwest Florida, who is on Twitter, who's really kind of one of those big collectors who collects people every day, just constantly collecting. And he's does it because he wants to support artists and art. And he doesn't really do it out of investment purposes, but there's other people that are all about the investment. So it kind of, people have different philosophies.
Yeah, but I mean, that wasn't like something that's just started happening with NFTs. Like people have been collecting on it forever because of investments or because of money laundering, right? Like, depending on, which is both cases really, but like that didn't change just because of NFTs. People are like, oh, they're just investing in it because it's like a pump and dump or something. It's like NFTs didn't introduce that concept.
No, well, I mean, Joe Lowe, who was one of the biggest, from the book, is a $1 billion whale, was one of the most wanted financial embezzlers by the U.S. and multiple governments. China is hiding him right now, I believe. He's a wanted fugitive internationally for his money laundering schemes. He essentially put a lot of his money that he got from Saudi Arabia and his connections he made at business school into art to hide his illicit spending and money that he did. So it's pretty interesting from that respect.
Yeah. So Brett, I mean, you mentioned, they gave you tips on how to create value. We're having this discussion. So from, you're an artist. I'm not an artist at all. I like, I don't know. I have some tastes in art, I suppose. But anyway, I'm curious, how have you approached this value question? How have you felt like you've created value with your artwork in general or the NFTs? I don't know. Were you doing art probably well before?
Yeah, I've always been doing art for years.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when Photoshop came around, the scene, and then digital art started to become a thing. And so ever since I got into digital art years ago, I just keep doing digital art. I just love doing it. And now that we have the iPad and you can just do it right there, it's a lot more fun. So, but as far as value, it kind of depends too, what your goals are. So on Ethereum, it's kind of different than on Tezos. So on Ethereum, you really want to do your best to create scarcity, doing one of ones, at least having a lot of your pieces be one of ones, and then having sort of these kind of rarer moments where you put out a limited edition or something, or an open edition, but it's only open edition for 3 days or something, or 24 hours. So that, because what you're doing is with the one of ones, it's usually more expensive. So only somebody that's willing to spend that money is going to buy it. And so you're putting out these one of ones, but then you throw out a limited edition for a brief period of time, or an open edition. and it allows smaller collectors or even other artists to collect your work who've always admired your stuff. And so it's sort of like you're trying to create your value in the one of ones, but sometimes you kind of change it up and freshen it up by throwing in a limited edition here or there, or an open edition for a day or something.
Interesting. No, that makes sense. Yeah, you want, I mean, you need to build your community somehow. And, 10 people who each own one of ones is, not as big of a community as, yeah. So,
and
no,
definitely
I like
community is huge. So, you can't just be putting your art out there on Twitter, which you need to every day, putting it on your timeline, but you have to also be interacting with people, building relationships, people getting to know you in some form. And when they start to connect with you as a person, then you start to get those people that not only like your art, but now they want to invest in it because now they kind of know you or feel like they know you and feel like that there's some level of trust there. If they're just seeing your art and there's no real personality behind it, there's no real interaction or communication, then there's a good chance, unless, I've seen people just happenstance because the art was really good and they happen to get one good collector and that kind of set a firestorm of other collectors. But usually it has to do with relationship, people kind of getting to know you. And once they do, they kind of trust you.
How often do people or collectors move their purchases from one chain to another? That was something I've always been curious about. Like, does that happen ever, where a community, I'm sure it does, where a community migrates from one chain to another for gas fees or just more feasible minting charges? But have you seen it where a certain collector is just like, I like this project, but it's not on my preferred chain. I'm going to go on this chain to get this project, and then I'm just going to migrate it over to my collection over here on my chain of choice?
Can you even do that with NFTs?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was just curious. I don't even know if you can.
Yeah,
That's why I'm
I've
asking.
not seen. Yeah, I've not seen anything like that or heard anyone talk about it. And I'm on there every day for the last, I don't know, 2.5 years. I don't think I've seen anyone talk about that, moving their NFTs to a different blockchain. I don't know if that's possible.
Do they make bridges for that?
Because a non-fungible token, so it's like the token exists, the NFT specification. I mean, Matt, what is the, do you know what the
Sure. I think
spec is
the
on?
one of the things is the IDs, right? And so like if I wanted to migrate things from this chain to that chain, I I would need to in a sense like pre-mint all of them, right? If it was like the Bored Apes or something where there's, I think 10,000 of them, right? I would need to mint the 10,000 tokens somewhere else so that, when I move token 800, over to the new chain, I don't mint number one because I'm the first one there. Identification is one of them. I don't know, and so that definitely makes the like back and forth thing hard. I have seen, and so I'm kind of curious, Brett, if you've got thoughts on ordinals as well. If you've done any, minted any tokens on Bitcoin, or not tokens, inscribed any ordinals on Bitcoin.
No,
But
I haven't. I mean, I've
yeah.
seen people talking about it, and definitely in the timeline, but I haven't really ventured off into that.
Okay.
So mainly just Solana, Tezos, and Ethereum I've been messing around with for the last 2.5 years.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's definitely a newer thing, and I imagine the tools will just get easier, to use it throughout the years. But I bring that up because I think I've seen when ordinals became a thing, somebody like moved a Bored Ape onto the ordinals, and they were just like, like, look, I'm burning this and I'm minting, or I'm inscribing it on the ordinal. And so it's not official, but it was like the owner said, I'm moving my ownership over here. So I don't know. It's
one thing I was listening to someone say is like, because with Bitcoin ordinals, you can actually mint the artwork on chain. It's on Bitcoin, right? Like when you mint an ordinal. Do I understand that right, Matt?
Say that again.
Like when you mint an ordinal, the graphic is actually on chain, right?
Oh yeah. I've seen people do it both ways.
Okay.
If it's like 4 MB or less, then it fits in the block space, and then
Right.
they can. But then I've also seen, that people I think are just for higher quality ones, you can include. I don't know whether people are doing it or not, but it's at least possible to just like include the IPFS pointer.
Yeah. Well, because what I think I've seen
Description.
people do is they're actually minting the artwork as a Bitcoin ordinal on chain,
Yes.
and then also minting NFTs that point to the Bitcoin ordinal. I don't know if that's a thing, but
The ordinal is a pointer to the we'll have a whole
no,
discussion on ordinals, but
yeah,
some other time.
we need to bring somebody on who knows Bitcoin ordinals, because I want to
Yeah,
see
yeah.
like what's possible there. But no, I think that's interesting. So what I was looking up though is like the actual standard for NFTs, though, at least on Ethereum, is the EOC 721, right? So like that contract only exists on Ethereum. So if you were to want to move to another chain, you would need like another contract on that chain with the NFT, and then of course find some way to burn it and then unlock the NFT on the other chain somehow. I think that's the only way you'd be able to do a bridge. Because I did hear about, I think it was what is that? Goblins? What do they call that
Oh, the
NFT?
Goblin Town, yeah.
Goblin Town.
They
Yeah.
migrated to a new
They
contract
migrated to a
recently.
new contract, so that was a whole ordeal because everybody who actually held the Goblin Town NFTs, all of a sudden their NFTs no longer existed.
The
It
image
was
changed, yeah.
they changed to like some other picture, some other whatever
Very funny.
that was basically like, hey, you need to switch to the new contract. This NFT
Hence-
doesn't exist anymore.
Hence the name Goblin Town, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Which is a good question though. Actually, Brett, I am kind of curious where you published the actual art, and so I don't know if you've gone into the technical background of what's going on here, but I some of the different ones are, if people publish to IPFS, that's kind of like immutable. It's that's there. It's static. I can't change it. Whereas if you were to publish like host the images on Amazon or Google. So I don't know if you've thought about that, or if just the platforms you use automatically do one of those things.
So on Foundation, I just use their system with
Okay.
minting and listing. I have experimented with Manifold. I don't know if you've heard of Manifold.
Yeah.
Allows you to create your own smart contracts, and there's a lot of different things you can do with it. And then once you create it there, you can then post it over on Foundation or Known Origin or some of these other sites.
Yeah.
So I've kind of messed around with that a little bit too.
So when you do it on Foundation, it's automatically hosted on IPFS.
Oh, is it? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just look it up. So they provide like the interface for you, so that they do all the back end stuff.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about Manifold. Have you done directly to OpenSea too? Or have you only done Foundation, Brett?
I've never directly went minted on OpenSea. I mean, you can see my work from the other platforms on OpenSea.
Right. Okay.
OpenSea
Yeah, I guess I
kind
don't know. Is OpenSea? Can you actually publish through OpenSea, or is that just a marketplace?
Yeah, you can mint and list. Some people use OpenSea to do all that. It's one of the bigger ones, and especially when people are doing the PFP thing and they like to use OpenSea. For sure.
And there's no cost. So I'm just looking this up too. NFTs created on OpenSea aren't actually minted onto the blockchain until they are purchased or sent to another wallet.
Yeah.
That process is called lazy minting. So it's
Mhm.
cheaper that way.
Yeah.
But
cheaper on the side of the artist, more expensive on the side of the purchaser.
Right. Yeah, they can pay the $50 fee to mint it on Ethereum.
Exactly. So I know, I don't know. I think one of the best arguments for, digital artists who, or just artists in general who, are skeptical of NFTs is the royalty system. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, or do you set royalties on yours so that, like if it gets traded again and again, you get a cut of that.
Yeah. On Foundation, I think typically set that to 10%.
Okay.
Even on Tezos, I just typically put 10%. Um, uh, like I know on Tezos, you can go a lot higher than I think Foundation allows you. But I found that if you go too high, people don't want to buy it because then they can't turn around and just resell it. And Tezos is a lot of buying and reselling, buying and reselling.
Interesting.
People do hold on to art. Like I have over 100 NFTs on Tezos, but I've owned probably double that I've gone and just resold and literally bought it because I could tell it goes really quick. This artist, the moment they put something up, it goes within an hour or two. And so I buy it and then turn around and try to resell it. And that happens a lot on Tezos because you don't have all those gas fees. And so people are willing to turn it around to get a few extra dollars.
Yeah, no, that's smart. That's smart. Yeah, I feel like it makes sense, right? You think of these incredibly great historic pieces of art, and they get sold and like the artist is probably dead, by the time it's selling for millions of dollars, right? But like even, their family, nobody gets like a cut of that, and so I like that, you can program that into the art piece itself to say, no, when you sell it, I still get a cut, I still get the royalties.
Right.
So.
What was that deal a while back where this other marketplace was bypassing basically OpenSea's royalty system? Is that like a different system as opposed to these royalties that you can actually build into the contracts? How does that work? Do you know, Matt?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I wasn't sure. Yeah, if Brett, you were familiar with it, but the OpenSea royalties were happening on the side of OpenSea,
Right.
and so then these other exchanges were launching, and they're like, we're not gonna, use those royalties. We want people to trade here, whatever. We don't care about that. And so that's why Goblin Town moved their contracts, is because it wasn't inherent in the contract. And then now they've updated it to something that is inherent in the contract. And so this is easy to do, right? It's, when you have a, I don't know exactly what the specification is that they use, but you can just say, hey, when this is transferred, if there's any value in the message, have 5% of that value go somewhere else. It's anyway, like I love how programmable NFTs are, smart contracts, all that stuff. So
Brett, how often do you see people like renting or like leasing NFTs? So I'm a huge fan of that one story where the person must have knew something that ApeCoin was going to drop because he was able to obtain all those addresses for those bored apes to show up in his MetaMask, and then all of a sudden he got a couple million in ApeCoin when that token dropped, all because he was able to rent the bored apes to show up in his MetaMask during that token drop. So I'm just curious, how often do you see people doing stuff like that? That was probably a one-off situation, and that guy must have had some inside baseball knowledge that nobody else did regarding ApeCoin. But it's still one of the coolest stories in crypto in the past 2 years. So I'm just curious. I'm just curious from that standpoint if you've ever seen a lot of that or anything like that.
There's some clever people out there, some smart people. For me, I haven't really seen much in the way of those things. So, mostly my circles tend to be sort of the artist types, though. One of one artists, the artists that want to put out editions, or just the artists. Where there's kind of these other people who put out projects versus just art. So they'll put out like the Bored Apes, PFPs or whatever. And so they'll hire an artist to create the art or somehow generate it. And they're not really necessarily artists themselves. They're just all about putting together a project. So I don't tend to, kind of move in those circles as much as I do more the just the one of one artists.
Yeah.
So my interest mainly is the art and hopefully creating value with it.
Yeah.
No, and that's how most people are on foundations, from what I understand too. So that's good to hear. It keeps things sincere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
Not
like
that there's anything wrong with projects or whatever, but sometimes it does feel a little bit, I don't know, like someone's just trying to make money and there's not more to it.
yeah, it is kind of an interesting question. Like I know I was at a conference. I don't know, maybe it was the Florida Blockchain Summit. So this was maybe a year and a half ago now. But this guy was saying he ran like an investment company and talk about NFTs. He's like, I only invest in NFTs that have utility. Like if they don't have utility, they're like scam projects or whatever. And I'm like, okay, but if it's actually artwork, like you're gonna tell artists like they have to like invent some sort of utility for the token to make it, for their artwork to make it valuable. Like I don't know, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit because I get what they're saying. People are saying that because it's like you see all these scam projects that are AI generated garbage art that has no utility, and everybody invests in it because the idea is everybody else is going to invest in it and then they're going to be able to dump it, right? So that is like there's a lot of that in the NFT space. We can't deny it's overrun with those types of projects, those pump and dumps. But at the same time, like when you look at the very core like value offering of what an NFT is, it's and I wouldn't even say it's what an NFT is, but it's at least what this JPEG, this picture type of NFT has become. It's a way for artists to make their artwork non-fungible, right? So that there's only one piece or a limited amount of their digital artwork available. And then if that's what that is, like, why does it need to have utility? It doesn't. If you like the artwork, if you like the artist, what more does it need to be, right?
Sometimes the artist can create some sort of interesting things of value. So, for instance, there was an artist who you basically could. He had two open editions of two pieces, and it was on Nifty Gateway, and for a certain amount of time. So people would go there and purchase these. So I purchased both pieces, and then that finished up after so many days. And then at a certain point, you could take those two pieces and burn them to receive a different piece. Mm-hmm. And so, which basically the two pieces were two parts of an image. So each piece looked like its own image, but actually they could be combined. Mm-hmm. So the final piece you got was this whole image. And so what you got there is you had people who bought the individual ones. Maybe they only wanted to buy one of the two. And so they never bought both of them. So they could never burn them both to get that final image. Or maybe they liked them being separate, or, And so what you have is people getting in on buying one of those open editions because that's all they wanted to afford or whatever. And then you had people buying both of them and then burning them. So only a more select people burned them. So now you have the final piece is a more even limited number than those other two pieces, if that makes sense. And so that was kind of cool. And so I got this final piece, and it's one of my favorite pieces of art. And so that's one way to kind of create, I don't know, gamify it sort of, or create other kinds of value that I think is more interesting.
Well, that's like what Bored Apes did with the zombie look, right?
You could, if you had a Bored Ape, you could mint two of the mutant apes,
mutant,
and so on. Yeah. But
no, I've gotten so turned off by that project in Yuga that I haven't even. I forget what they're all called. Honestly.
I've dug real deep into it because I was interested in what they were doing. But
no, it was interesting at the time. Turns out it might have been fraud, but. Yeah.
I really don't know
It's
a whole lot
history.
about Bored Apes.
But
But
what was the fraudulent part? I haven't heard that.
They got sued by a couple of people. It's some dicey situations right now from a legal standpoint. Maybe embezzlement, maybe not, but it's crypto, so who knows?
Sure. We'll dig in more into it later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we can.
yeah.
No,
No, I'm kind of curious, but
I just see so many people with like Bored Ape profiles, and I guess there's different Bored Ape projects that I guess probably have a lower price point to get into. Or is there? I'm sure there's also a lot of people who don't actually hold the NFT that just have the profile.
yeah, just right click.
But just the number of people I see on the timeline with it, I'm like, do all these people really have like that money? Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what is a Bored Ape right now? Isn't it like hundreds of thousands still?
Something like that. Yeah, that was, I think, the funniest moment. I thought of it earlier in our conversation, but I just remember somebody tweeted something like, that, oh, actually, it might be better to buy a Bored Ape instead of a house because it'll retain its value. Something like that. But
I'm pretty sure Justin Bieber bought his Bored Ape for upwards of 6, 7 figures, and then it dropped to like 5 figures during the bear cycle last summer. So they definitely did lose a lot of their proverbial value, if you were to call it that.
Interesting. Brett, I am just to kind of shift the conversation a bit. Connor sort of mentioned AI. As an artist, what are your thoughts on AI? Do you use it at all? I know like Photoshop actually, newly put out some AI features. Anyway, yeah,
Right.
all your thoughts. We love talking.
Yeah, I definitely have thoughts on it. On Twitter, on my timeline, I don't say all my thoughts because I have friends, quote unquote friends, because you Twitter. People I'm connected with, other artists that are AI artists, that are part of the Freaks University thing that I'm a part of. So I try not to do anything to really offend them. They are nice people and all, but I do think that there are a lot of artists, or actually, I would say even those who are not even artists, because I decided, well, I want a good opinion about this. So I went onto Discord and signed up and actually have paid for a year of Midjourney.
Oh wow!
And so I've done some experimenting with it, just for fun, just to see, well, what is this? And with no intention of ever taking a piece and minting it, because I just can't. But it is fun generating all these really cool images. It definitely does an amazing job at creating some really neat stuff. But I was thinking, well, what application would I have with this? If I'm not going to take this, do the word prompts, how could I use this? And I also wanted to evaluate, okay, how easy is it to create cool looking art, and how fast, how easy is it? And would I consider this some kind of legitimate form of art? Sort of like if someone does photography or someone does collage, does this fall into that where photographer isn't necessarily an artist in the sense of like someone who paints? Where does it fall? So I did that. I messed around with word prompts, did a bunch of research, and created a bunch of art, and decided that I really couldn't feel like that it would be good for me to use it as a form of creating art just by itself, the raw form that it puts out. Because literally someone who's not an artist could do these word prompts and create, 10 pieces in an evening, and then the next day go mint them. So I kind of felt like that really wasn't fair. That wasn't sort of have a lot of integrity to it. So what I do with AI art is I use it instead of going on the Pinterest and Google and ArtStation and DeviantArt, these different art sites, looking at other people's art or images, searching for inspiration. So say I want to create dragons, and so I go on Pinterest and search on dragons, or I'm trying to get a particular lighting, so I look for certain photographs. So instead of going there, I'm going to Midjourney putting in word prompts, describing things that I'm thinking of, and basically using it as a way to help concept out ideas. And then I go and create the art from scratch. So all my art is created from scratch. Most of it is vector artwork. So only recently I've been doing this, but so probably last, 3 or 4 months, using Midjourney as a way to kind of come up with just ideas, concepts, to get inspiration. And instead of, looking at other people's art, I'm using my own word ideas to generate a unique image for, inspiration.
Interesting.
So that's sort of my take on it. I think I did see one artist recently who does collage, does a lot of where he takes different photos and then puts together a scene or an image. Recently use AI to create some of those images. So he's not necessarily putting the word prompt in, creating the art, and then taking that directly and minting it. He's taking multiple images that he's created through AI and then, cutting out portions and manipulating it and putting together a final piece, an art piece. And I thought, well, that's a, I could see some validity to that. It's the same as taking photos and bashing them up into a collage. So, and then that way it's even more unique. So I could see some application where AI could be used in a valid way versus what a lot of these people are doing who I don't even think are artists. They're just getting on the bandwagon. If I can make money real quick and throw out some cool stuff. And
I think that's really like what kills it for me is just the thought that not only is it AI art, but it's like they're only creating this to make money. And it's
right.
That just kills it for me. Like I don't want to buy something that's just gonna, line somebody's pockets for nothing.
And I have to kind of go through the, when I'm on, finding a cool piece of art or whatever, I'm sort of like, is this real or was this created with AI?
Yeah.
And so I'm zooming in because I kind of know what to look for, these little, inconsistencies. Someday, I guess AI art will get to the point where there's no inconsistencies, and how will you tell? I don't know, but yeah, I have a feeling that some of it's going to settle out. I hope, where people are going to be like, they're not going to be comfortable with. There's all this AI art. If 90% of it's AI art, then how are you going to, I don't know, find the value? I guess. So I feel like it has a place if used more like a tool instead of like the raw image taken and just minted.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Hey, Brett, as we start to wrap things up, why don't you tell the people where they can find some of your work, and also what are some other projects that you're keen on right now that people should take a look at if they've never waded in the waters of NFT art before?
Projects.
Not projects. You said you don't like the word projects. Collections or artists to follow.
Right. There's definitely some artists that I like to follow.
My mistake.
No, that's okay. Probably if you end up going to some of the places that I'm on, if you go and look at who I'm following on Foundation or on object.com, which is on Tezos, or on Exchange Art, which is on Solana, you could probably find some really good artists. Plus, I end up retweeting and interacting with a lot of artists on my Twitter timeline. But yeah, you can basically find me almost anywhere just with Brett Stebbins. So, BRETT and Stebbins, my last name, STEBBINS. I have a website, brettstebbins.com. Just has a lot of my art up there. But on Foundation, you can find me under that name. Under Tezos, you can find me under that name. On the Twitter, you can find me under that name. And if you go to my Twitter account, that's where you can find all the links to kind of where I'm at.
Brett, we're actually big ENS fans here too, and I know you have a .eth name.
Yes.
That's a website. I think I saw you posting about that on Twitter recently.
So I bought the brettstebbins.eth, and then there was another service where you could it basically adds a .co to the end of it. And so if you go to my Twitter account, my main link, if you click on it, it's drawing from my ETH account and looking at what NFTs I have, the ones I'm either selling or I own or have supported other artists and bought their art. And you can see all that on that page. So it automatically kind of puts it all in there. You can customize sort of how it's laid out. And then you can add some other links. So if you go to that main link, that also will take you to all the other links that I'm on, platforms and things.
That's awesome.
But yeah. So I just was, at one point I was trying to figure out, do I want to do some kind of cool screen name because I had this one screen name that I always like to use, or do I want to use my own name? I'm like, what should I do? And so I eventually came up with just using my name. Most people don't, but yeah, just use my full name.
It's easiest. That's what I've given up. I've given up trying to hide behind some aliases. I do one, but it's like I've given up for the most part. My name's pretty unique, so is what it is.
Right. And I sort of use that as my identity too, in the sense of I kind of am known to dox myself online. I mean, to a certain extent, obviously. I'm not giving someone my address.
No.
But, I'll talk about I live in Florida, or I'll put up pictures of me and my kids or whatever I'm doing if I'm, having a beer with the guys or something.
Sure.
So it's I want people to kind of know that I'm a real person, and hopefully that's part of what draws people maybe to my work or interacting with me. And I use that same icon, the green meatball with the eye in it. So it's everywhere. So wherever you see that, that's me.
That's good.
That's awesome. Well, authenticity is appreciated in this space, and it was great having you on. Thanks for joining us
thank you.
this evening. So look forward to getting this episode out. And for anybody that hasn't yet, like, comment, review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, download, wherever podcasts are found. We appreciate you for stopping by, listening, or watching. And hope everybody has a great week. And Brett, hopefully we can have you on again in the future to talk NFTs. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It was fun.